Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Stop. I love this because every time this subject comes up, I always tell this story or this collection of stories, right? So when I was, I think about 7 or 8, my grandmother moved into a tiny apartment that my mom and I had. We didn't have enough space. We decided we were going to move into a larger apartment, just a few blocks away from our old one, right? It's honestly hilarious how like textbook this story is because the day we were moving in, this man who I believe had a bakery or some kind of like just food store across the street was like, "Oh, you guys are moving in?" And we were like, "Yeah, yeah, we're moving in the upstairs apartment." And he was like, "Oh, well, people don't really last too long in that place, so yeah." And we were like, "Oh, haha," and we chalked it up to the landlady kind of being a little bit of a bitch. So we were like, "Okay, yeah, you know." So we only ended up spending about 2 to 3 months in that apartment because the activity was so like strong and prevalent, and it started happening on a more and more constant basis the longer that we stayed there. My personal experience was one that happened with me and my dog. It was just a couple months after we had adopted my dog, and well, we bought him from like fucking backyard breeders, but he was a good guy. Uh, so I remember one day I was playing with my dog. We were kind of just like running around. I had a toy, and we had a small dinner table, and it was one of those dinner tables that's like meant to be kept in small apartments. So it had like two benches, and like the benches could be tucked under the table and just like pulled out whenever you needed to use them. So I remember this so vividly. My dog was like under the table. He had his paws up. He was standing on his hind legs and he was facing me. And we had just been like playing and he was like, being active with me. And all of a sudden, he stops and he's just staring at something like behind me in the foreground. And I remember trying to gain his attention. I was like, "Brownie, Brownie." And then I looked into this dog's eyes, and I swear to you, I just saw a huge black shadow fly from one corner of the room, just like straight out of the window. And like that's what he was staring at. Like he had just been playing with me, you guys, and he just stopped so abruptly and it freaked me out. And when I saw the shadow like pass, like over the room in the reflection of his eyes, I got up and I screamed and I ran to like the back of the apartment where my family was and I was like, "Ah, Chucky returned." I don't know why I said that. I guess it's because I used to be scared of Chucky and like I associated that with like ghosts and supernatural things. And I told my family about it, whatever. Another experience my mom had was one night, she was asleep in her bedroom, and she's a light sleeper and she always has like struggled with insomnia. And at that point we had installed an alarm on the front door of the apartment, and it was one of those that was like, well, all alarms, you put like one half on the door frame and the other piece on the door, and whenever those pieces like move, there was a beeping noise that happened, right? So my mom swore that she heard the beeping of the front door opening, and she heard it so clearly that she like mentally prepared herself to meet an intruder outside of the door. And like she told us that she grabbed an iron like to iron clothes, and she was prepared to like have the fight of her life, protect her child and her mother. She walked outside. She like saw my dog laying like on the floor, and he was just kind of like confused as to why she was there. And she walked around the apartment. There was nobody there. Now, my grandmother's experience was probably the most like intense, and I think it's because she's a very spiritual woman, she's a very religious woman, she's like in tune with these sort of things, right? So, I believe in these kind of things. So the way that I talk about it is not like some like, "Oh, it could have been la la la." Like we know it was a spirit and she was aware of that. And unfortunately she didn't have like a bed at the time. She was sleeping on an air mattress on the floor. And one night she was woken up by the feeling of somebody stepping on her bed and walking over her. Like, you know how throughout the night the air mattress just naturally kind of leaks air out, right? So her being the strong spiritual person she is, she just grabbed a bottle of holy water and she was like, "Get out of my room! Get out of my room!" in Spanish. And that was kind of like the last straw. She also had a different experience where she saw somebody walking like down the stairs, and there was a maintenance man in the house that day, and she thought that she saw him walking down the stairs, but actually like he was still like somewhere in the apartment, or like, you know, it wasn't him, but she saw like a figure of a man like walking in the stairwell. So that was enough for us. We're like, we're not staying here. On top of the paranormal activity, the landlady is genuinely a bitch. And the final part of this story is my personal favorite. The same guys who helped us move into the apartment were helping us move out. And, you know, of course, they're like, "Why are you guys moving out so early? Like, you guys just moved in here a few months ago." And we told them the truth. We're like, "Listen, like, there's a ghost in this bitch, and we're not about to deal with that shit, so we're outie." And they're all like, nah, what are you talking about? What you talking about, right? The whole time they're like making jokes, you know, just like belittling the situation. Well, we were carrying things down the stairs, and all of a sudden this man is like, "Yo, I feel something on my back. I feel something is like burning me." Well, we look at his back. Man has 3 distinct scratch marks going down his back. He started freaking the fuck out. After that, everybody shut the fuck up with the jokes, and they started moving their asses, getting that shit down into the truck. And that man whose back was scratched was actually Muslim. And my grandmother was like, "You want me to put holy water, you know, from the Catholic Church?" And he was like, "Yes, please, 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 bless me, bless me." Man was scared, yo. He was so scared. He was like, "Yeah, any religion is good right now. God, help, help." But yeah, that was the story. We moved into the other apartment, and boom, we was out of there. And we even had like a moment where we talked to our downstairs neighbors, and they were like, "Yeah, it's going on down here too." You know, we were both Hispanic families, and it's not unlike Hispanics to be like spiritual and just off rip believe in like spirits, and, you know, not, you know, flinch away from accepting paranormal activity exists and happens. So they were aware. I don't know how long that they stayed there, but all I know is that 3 months was enough, and we was out of there.
Stop scrolling so I can tell you a scary story. Stop scrolling, okay? You here? Are you here? Okay. Alright. Let's get into it. Let me tell you about the house I grew up in, okay? It wasn't just haunted. It was wrong. Now, once we moved in, things started off very small, like the TVs turning on and off, lights flickering on and off, okay? And this was a very old house. We would hear footsteps in the hall at night when there was literally nobody there. Beds were sinking, and sinking as in like someone, you know, like when you sit on a bed and the bed sinks, like that kind of sinking, except obviously no one was fucking there. But the house wasn't just haunted. This is gonna sound crazy, but it was alive, okay? And it wanted my mom. She was one that was very receptive to it. She was very into the paranormal. She was into ghosts. She was into that shit. And maybe that's why it targeted her first. I don't know. At first it was very mild, like I said, but then it got violent, and it was kind of fucking scary. She'd wake up choking, gasping for air, okay, as if someone was strangling her, and then let go. No one was in the room, okay? It was just me and my mom at this point. She would tell me that she saw this girl, and it was a little girl, blonde hair, in a white nightgown, and she would be running up and down the hall. Like I just said, footsteps running up and down the hall, okay? It was the little girl. So I thought. My mom chased after her thinking it was me, okay? Again, it was me and my mom. She walked into my room and I was sound asleep. Then came the Ouija board, and As y'all know, you don't fuck with the Ouija board. You don't fuck with it. My mom bought this old Ouija board off of eBay, okay? And when I say old, I mean this thing looked like it was the first Ouija board ever fucking made, okay? From the moment that thing was brought into the house, shit just changed, okay? The energy shifted. And the energy was already off, but it shifted so bad. This is when the crazier shit started happening. And my mom became obsessed with it. And I mean, she would use it every single day, obsessed with it. And she carried that thing everywhere with her, okay? I'm talking to the bathroom, to the kitchen, to the living room, to her car. And she just kept saying it was calling to her. And it was calling her mama. And I don't like it. I don't like it. And then this is where shit hits the fucking fan, okay? We started hearing scratching on the walls. As if it was kind of like something alive was in the wall and was trying to get out, okay? And obviously at first we're like, okay, maybe there's squirrels in there. Maybe there's rodents in there. Maybe we got mice, you know? Spoiler alert, we don't. And doors didn't just slam, okay? They would rattle. They would rattle violently, as if someone was trying to break through. There were also times we would hear things breaking from the kitchen, and of course we'd run down there and there was nothing broken. Like there was nothing. Nothing fell, literally nothing. Now one night, I woke up to my door opening. Not only was my door opening, but it was creaking, okay? And it was creaking back and forth, okay? My door was moving back and forth very slowly, just like this. I finally just yelled for it to stop, okay? I said, stop it, stop it. I was freaking out, okay? I was a little kid. I didn't know what the fuck this shit was at the time. Because I had to speak my piece, then it came for me. At this age, I didn't believe in any of this, okay? I didn't want to. But one fateful night, when everyone was upstairs, I wanted some orange juice, okay? So I went down to the kitchen. I passed the hallway, the same hallway that my mom saw that little girl in the white dress with blonde hair in. And that hallway always felt wrong. That hallway would make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. That hallway, you know, like those memes and TikTok videos where people are like, oh, when you have to go downstairs for a drink and it's dark and you have to turn the lights on and you run the fuck upstairs. Like, that was literally how I got through the hallway. I would run. It always just felt like something was staring at you, or stalking you, which is a better term to say because quite literally we were being stalked by this little ghosty ghost, okay? I finally make it to the kitchen and I make it to the counter. I poured my drink and then we used to have these bead curtains over our sliding door that was there, you know, like the beads you walk through. I don't know if they still make them nowadays. That shit just started swinging violently, okay? As if something has punched it. Okay, and I don't know about y'all, but growing up, and still to this day, I punch my shower curtain, okay? My shower is when I vent, okay? You know, like when you punch a shower curtain, and if you don't, trust me, I am mentally stable, occasionally. But it was like that, as if someone punched the fucking beads, okay? And of course, as a kid, I froze. And I just felt like something was behind me, okay? And in the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow fly by, okay? I know I wasn't crazy. I know what the fuck I saw, okay? So I took off, okay? I didn't run. I bolted to my room. Things only got worse. One night, my mom heard loud ass banging, okay? I heard it too. It literally sounded like someone was taking a hammer to the walls, okay? But the next morning, my mom didn't just hear banging. No, okay? She heard scraping, as if someone above her, like, you know, someone on the next level, was dragging a chair across the floor. And that same night, I was going to the bathroom. Late at night, I woke up. I had to pee, okay? I wake up. It's probably middle of the night, probably 3 o'clock, you know. And I turn the light off in the bathroom. And I go to walk out the door, and bitch, I saw a shadow, okay? And it was a perfect shadow of a person. All black figure, no face, okay? Just the outline. I'm talking Shaquille O'Neal tall, okay? I mean, you could stack my body 5 times and that still wasn't tall enough. And I ran to my mom's room and I told her, and the very next morning she called a priest. He told us to cut the Ouija board into 7 pieces and burn it as far away as we could from the house. So we drove to a park, I think about 2 hours away. Okay, 2 hours. We drove 2 hours to burn this shit. Embers rose into the air. It was almost like it was fucking snowing. For a place that doesn't snow, the Ouija board was our snow. To be completely honest, after that, the activity did die down. We still never felt safe. No. And I think we were so traumatized by that, we still heard and felt things. But it wasn't, I'm not gonna say it wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad. And about a year and a half after, we actually moved. Okay, and we moved to another house that is currently haunted, you know, not sinisterly haunted. Is that a word? If not, I just made it up. You're welcome. Okay, this one's fine. Okay, it's like friendly ghosts, friendly spirits, and it is what it is. And it's rare that something actually happens. Even to this day, I mean, this happened about 25 years ago, okay? Even to this day, I think about it and chills run down my spine. And sometimes I just wonder, like, was it haunted? Like, was our house haunted? Or was it just something very sinister that wanted to take control? You know what I mean? Probably not. Whatever. Have you guys ever experienced something like this? And if so, please drop it down below because I love reading these. And this is actually a story from one of my followers. So shout out to you, boo. She did not want to share it, but she did feel comfortable enough sharing it with me, and I absolutely adore that. So if you guys have a paranormal experience that you don't want to share, but you want me to share it, just send me a message and I got you. Okay? I said it once and I'll say it again. Stop fucking with Ouija boards. And there's people like, well, I messed with them and nothing happened. Well, hooty hoo for you, boo. Must be nice. Hell no. Hell no. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I love you. And yeah. Let me know what you want to see next. Love you.
I've always felt a specific type of way about, like, Americans who don't necessarily believe in certain, like, other aspects of things, because it forces them to, like, unlearn shit in the Western world. That's besides the point anyways. There's this interview of Lauryn Hill and Wyclef, and he's actively telling a story about, like, yeah, like, in Haiti, I saw, like, a mermaid. Like, that was some crazy ass shit. And Lauryn Hill is just, like, making fun of him, right? And that shit just always made me look at her differently, because it's just like, you go over there, and you go to the fucking beach that they tell you don't go to. Go ahead, go to the coast. Matter of fact, y'all wanted more Haitian story times. I'm gonna give you another Haitian story time. I had told this story one time, but shit went wrong and the video got taken down. We're gonna do it again. I went to Haiti one time. I was 4. We were in Port-au-Prince. Everything was chilling. Everything was fine. And my grandmother would tell me, there are people, and, like, for a lack of better words, people in Haiti who look like Slender Men. And the way that these spirits show up is they show up because the way that our house was set up is, like, it was kind of a dome. It was kind of a dome like this. There were, like, 3 different wings, and I was in the middle wing. Woo! Y'all, my grandmother told me, look, when this candle blows out, do not leave your room. Do not open your eyes. She was like, unless I come get you, do not get out of this bed. And she was just all like, and if you hear anything, turn the other way. You think I'm going to remember all of that at 4? I did. I just didn't listen. I started hearing scratches like that on the walls, but like from ear to ear, like on the walls, right? I was getting real scared. My eyes open. Okay, because the candle was already out. I had fallen asleep though, you know what I mean? Well, I'm hearing scratches, and so I opened my eyes, and I remember when I opened my eyes, I started hearing whispers. Whispers like this, saying, open the door, get out of your bed, open the door. Oh, hell no. I was like, when I tell you and this was the dumbest thing I could have done. I ended up moving. I ended up like curling up into the ball, bitch. That woke up the spirits. When I tell you, there were literal, like, it looked like Slender Men, like tall figures, shadow figures rising from the bottom to the top and like over in this dome area, bitch. There were claws, there were big sharp teeth, there were it was scary as fuck. It was one of the scariest things ever. And the whispers just got louder and louder. And everybody was just like, that's literally what the fuck it sounded like. And that was one of the scariest things ever. And I remember my grandmother, she busted open the door and she was just all like, I told you not to open your eyes. She was like, you're inviting them. And she had to give me a bath in this blue water. And that was one of the scariest things I'd ever fucking like done in my life. Now, the reason why I was talking about White Clef and this mermaid story is, where we had lived, and I posted a video of like me back in Haiti, and you could see that like in my backyard was a beach. And I don't know why I said it like that. And girl, when I tell you, like a couple of nights later, this was one of my last nights there. I have never been back to Haiti since. When I tell you, I had looked out of the window and was just chilling there. The sun was setting. It wasn't dark yet. When I tell you, I was just chilling there and I see the most prettiest woman I had ever seen. The prettiest woman I had ever seen. Sitting down. And she was bathing in the sun. Now, this isn't something like just sitting in the sun. No, like she was dancing and moving in the sun. Like, I've never seen this before. And if you know anything about voodoo, you would know somebody named Oshun or Yemaya. And this woman, like the way that, like the stories that you hear about Oshun, like just like the way that you hear about like how seductive she was and how beautiful she was and like how people were in a trance with her, that's literally what this woman looked like. And I remember one of my neighbors who lived there too, he would always say, she's beautiful, but you can't touch her. She's beautiful, but you can't touch her. And so I remember, like, as I was looking at her, I kept thinking, like, I wonder why he was saying, like, you can't touch her. Like, you can't touch her. And I had seen this lady walk into the ocean. And the more and more she got into the ocean, the longer and longer her face got. And I turned around, I laid down, and I minded my business. I've told this story once and I've told this story again. My mother practiced voodoo santeria, but she was also a medium, and a lot of spirits would speak to her and interact with her. Now, this was a hindrance, but also a really beautiful gift, but a huge fucking hindrance. Now, the women in my family, especially with us being related to each other, we all have different kinds of abilities. Now, this is not me saying that we are otherworldly or that we are of God. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about energetically. Energetically, we can feel things. That's all. I'm not saying anything other than that. This is not a demonic thing. I know how y'all like to get. If something negative was going to happen, me and my siblings one of my sisters specifically would have dreams about it. Another one of my sisters would have really, really strong energy in her chest. So she would have like really strong anxiety, or her throat would get choked up or things like that. Me, I would get a message, if that makes sense. Like, I could take a nap and wake up and I'd be able to like relay a message that, let's say, a passed on loved one, wanted you to know, something like that. Like, the one way I found out one of my boyfriends was cheating was I like fell asleep and like while I was falling asleep, I was thinking about how this nigga was definitely cheating on me, and I woke up knowing his passcode. That's all I'm gonna say. So because I was able to necessarily like only hear things, I was so afraid of seeing things. Like, my mother was somebody who all the time would be like, oh, I saw so-and-so today. Oh, so-and-so showed themselves to me. And so I was always really scared, because I'd be like, I'm not my mother. I'm not my mother, bitch. If I see a spirit, I'm pissing, shitting, crying, throwing up, and somebody's gonna have to get me, because I'm not doing this shit. Well, when me and my family first moved from Miami to California, we ended up living with my great-grandparents, and my mother shipped us to California one by one. So it's not like we came all together with my mom. No, it was like one sibling was taking care of another sibling under our great-grandfather's roof, and that's how we were living. And at this time, it was just me and two of my older siblings who are 10 and 7 years older than me. They are way older than me, right? So I was super, super young. Years prior to me being born, well, actually, the year that I was born, my aunt had passed away of cancer in this house, in this room that I ended up sleeping in. And my great-grandfather at the time had a really big garden, and he would always say, you know, when I pass away, you're going to see all these white butterflies, and that's me. That's your daddy. Always remember that. And I'd be like, all right, clock it. My aunt who passed away smoked cigarettes and she died of cancer. Every time I would think about her, I would smell cigarettes, but I didn't know. I'm going to tell you how I found out she smoked cigarettes, because this wasn't knowledge that I knew before. I hadn't even met this woman. She met me. I never met her. I was a baby, okay? About our grandparents' houses, they didn't sleep in the same room. It was like a 4 or 5 bedroom house, 3 different living rooms. One grandparent slept on one side of the house and the other one slept on the other side. That was it. And so during the day, it was really quiet. But one day, I'm getting the chills just thinking about this. Nobody was home. I don't know how I was left alone. I don't know how I was left alone. And I'll never forget this. I believe my grandfather was outside. I wasn't old enough to be in school yet. And it was the week before Christmas break. I was in the living room, the kids' living room, where they had all these video games. And I was sitting there. Trying to figure out how to turn on the GameCube. And when I had went to turn on the GameCube, do you guys remember what the GameCube sounded like? Mind you, I was 4 or 5, didn't really understand how to work this shit. But you know how to go Well, when it did that, it glitched. And it kept going and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And so I'm calling for one of my cousins or my grandpa, and I'm just like, Daddy? And I hear I'm getting chills just thinking about this shit. I heard the refrigerator door. They had a fridge, double doors that you could open. I heard somebody close the fridge. Didn't even hear somebody open it. Somebody had closed the fridge, and you hear slippers sliding. You know how when your mom is tired or somebody's tired, leaving my slippers on, you hear they're sliding. They're not necessarily picking up their feet. I heard that, and it's not that we didn't wear slippers in the house. My step great grandmother, she would mop every day, sweep, broom, mop everything. That floor, baby, you could. Okay, Haitian people don't play, especially her. Well, I didn't really see anybody, wearing slippers like that. We had slippers, but they mostly wore these really big mental health hospital socks. Well, I heard those slippers, and I heard this woman's voice that I had never heard before say, try and unplug it. And they said the cord is next to my room. And I'm like, who the fuck is that? I mean, I'm 4. I'm like, who? Yes. I'm like, who is that? And, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies. Well, I turn and I don't hear anybody. I turn and I don't see anybody. I turn and I don't see anybody. And then next thing I know, I see the room door that she was talking about. I see the cord there, and the cord was unplugged, but halfway through her door. And when I had gone to go to the cord to grab it, the door had shut. And I swear to God, I had seen her. And I was terrified, bitch. I was terrified because she didn't necessarily reveal herself the way that, she had looked. She had revealed herself the way she had looked the day she passed away. And that shit was scary as fuck. And I ended up years later, my great grandfather had passed away. We ended up having to live in that house again, and I ended up sleeping in that same bed that she passed away in, and it was always cold.
Okay, so growing up in a haunted house,
I got a lot of stories, a lot of things that happened, okay? So this one involves my little brother, Benjamin, okay? I'm the oldest, and I have 3 younger brothers. So at this time, I'm 13, Benjamin's 7. Both of us were really scared a lot of the time. So what we had got to doing was, at nighttime, Benjamin would have to come sleep in my room with me. And how we did that was, I had a twin bed, and I would put a blanket pallet on the floor right next to my bed. So I'd be in my twin bed, and then right underneath me, my brother would be right there, you know, in his little blanket pallet that I would make him. And we would hold hands, and we'd fall asleep. And then in the middle of the night, if one of us got scared, we would, you know, grab the other one's hand. And sometimes even he'd have to get up into bed with me, even though it was a super tight fit, because that's just how terrified we were at times, okay? So now creepy stuff didn't happen every single day. You know, that's the thing about growing up in a haunted house. But when it happened. Like, there were some things that happened that we were just so used to happening, like hearing footsteps down the hallway every single night. We had just got so used to that. Even to this day, like, that's just something that happens, okay? That doesn't even faze you anymore. I'm talking about, like, we would get terrified, like, really scared. So it was one of those days where he had said he wanted to sleep in my room. So I said, okay, no problem. I said, I gotta go take a shower, but what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make your pallet, your little bed, and you go ahead and go to sleep, and I'll be in there. Well, for whatever reason, I had fallen asleep, and I didn't take my shower. And I was just laying in the bed, and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, it was the middle of the night. So I reached for my brother's hand, and I held my brother's hand, and I fell back asleep. So a little while later, I don't know how much later, but I woke up, and I wasn't holding my brother's hand anymore. And I said, Benjamin, are you okay? I called out for him, right? I said, Benjamin, are you there? Are you okay? I didn't hear anything, because the noise had woken me up, and I wasn't sure if it was him. Because sometimes he would like talk or cry in his sleep a little bit, you know. And I just would feel bad for him if he was having a rough time. So anyway, so I call out, Benjamin, are you okay? I'm still kind of like in that zone where you're like kind of half asleep, half awake, and I didn't hear nothing. So I reach out and I grab his hand. Okay, I fall asleep. I wake up again. So now this is the 3rd time that I've woken up. So yeah. And when I call out for his name again, I hear nothing again. Okay. I sit up because I'm like, let me check on him. And I sit up and I look, and there's nobody laying there. There's nobody laying there. So, of course, I get freaked out. And I'm thinking, maybe he got up and maybe he went to his room. Because maybe he was that scared, you know. Maybe he just got up and went to his room. I don't know. Because I'm wondering, where's Benjamin? I know he was in here. I know he was in here. Because remember, I was holding his hand twice now. I woke up and I grabbed my brother's hand and I went to sleep. Well, I get up. He's not in his room. So I go down to my mom and daddy's room because, let me just check there. So it turns out he was in the bed with mom and daddy. So I go back to my room, you know, I'm freaked out. I turn the TV on because I'm just not going to go back to sleep. And I fall asleep eventually again. I wake up in the morning. So in the morning I go and I say, hey, Benjamin, what happened last night? What happened? Because whenever I woke up, you weren't there anymore. He said, well, I never slept in your room to begin with because you fell asleep. I said, do what? He said, I never slept in here. I slept with mom and daddy last night because you fell asleep and I was scared. I said, oh, really? Okay. So whose hand was I holding? Whose hand was I holding, huh? Because it wasn't Benjamin's. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. But, yeah.
I ever moved into after my divorce was the most haunted house I've ever lived in. This house held a lot of negative energy. Another thing about my time when I was living in this house is that I was going through a religious deconstruction, and I do think that made me vulnerable to a lot because I was already kind of in this open processing space in this spiritual sense. When my roommate moved out, it was just my daughters and I, and the room that my roommate used to live in, we turned into like our special room where I used it as an office and also as like a meditation space. I did a lot of my deconstructing in that room, a lot of studying, a lot of praying, a lot of working through things spiritually. One night I was meditating and I closed my eyes and very quickly felt the presence of 2 very large dark figures. They were as tall as the ceiling and they were standing in front of me to my right and to my left. And they were telling me that they were good and that they were there to help me. But I felt in my body that they were not, and I felt paralyzed, like I couldn't do anything. So I was standing there and I could feel them communicating to me that they were good, we're here to help you. And they said, tilt your head back It's not audible, okay? I don't know if any of you have ever had spiritual experiences where you like hear things, but it's just a thought inside your head. And so I'm sitting there and I feel my chin being pushed back energetically, okay? It's an actual physical push. This is actually real. Being pushed back energetically, and I could feel my mouth being pried open, like there's someone is holding on and making my head go back and prying my mouth open. And so my head is back and I can feel the pressure, and I'm trying, it's like the feeling of it is like when you're in a dream and something so scary is happening, but you are opening your mouth to scream and no sound is coming out. That's how this experience was. Like I was trying to get myself to be able to move, and I physically couldn't do it. It's the same way I felt in the Penelope story. It was the same physical presence, but it was a different energy. Like I knew that specific energy was gone and that this was different, but I could feel it on my physical body. So as my head is being tilted back, I can feel as if something is being pulled from my mouth. And the best way I can explain it is like Dementors from Harry Potter. So I could feel something like coming out of my mouth. And that was, again, a moment. Just like with the Penelope experience where I was like, I can't move, I can't move, I can't move. And then something clicked in me and I was able to like get up. And I did the same thing. I got up and I said, get out of my house. And it was like, whew, and I felt it go. There is a second part to the story because these guys actually, this was not the last time that they returned. They tried again, and they tried bigger with bigger energy. I'm actually getting a little bit emotional telling the story. So I'll share the part where I like got rid of them next time.
So I used to live in a house where I had a lot of paranormal experiences. If you're coming from my last video, this is part 2 of how I finally got rid of those 2 big figures that were trying to like extract my soul. Not long after that moment happened, I was coming home from work one day, and I'll post the picture of the house here again in case you haven't seen it. So I pulled up into the driveway, and as soon as I turned the ignition off, got out of my car and started walking toward the house, I felt this immense energy pressing on my body, almost like it was trying to keep me away from the house. It felt like this force toward my body. So I walked up the driveway, I took a right, and I went around the little corner where there's the little walkway to the front door, and the front door had a screen door, and then the front door was behind the screen door. So I opened the screen door, and as soon as I opened it, that energy started pushing back even harder. Like it was so palpable, I could feel it on my physical body. So I took a deep breath because I didn't know what I was going to be met with on the other side of the door. And as soon as I opened it, it was like so heavy that it felt like it was trying to push me down to the ground. This is kind of one of those moments like I've talked about in the last 2 videos where something just comes over you, and in the moment that you need it, you know what to do. So I started to scream, like yell at the top of my voice that I do not align with darkness. I renounced any evil attachment or dark energy that I had unknowingly invited into my home. And I said, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, you must leave my house. And I had left the front door open, mind you. Okay, so when I walked in, I didn't close the door behind me. I left the front door open and I said, you need to leave through the front door right now. And I fell to my knees. I fell to my knees and I was weeping, and this energy, I felt it lift off of me and clear the home. And in that moment, after I felt like that energy had left, I realigned my soul with light, because I think that as I was in my deconstruction and deconstructing from high control religion and kind of starting to meditate and expand my mind into other things spiritually, I don't think that I protected myself well enough, and I think that I became vulnerable unknowingly to dark energies and entities. And I think that that's what I was experiencing with that specific experience. The Penelope story, if you haven't heard it, you can go back and listen to that. I think that that was different. That didn't feel to me like something that I had picked up. But these 2 energies felt like something that I had unknowingly allowed into my space, and they were trying to like gain my allegiance with them. Yeah, that's why you trust your gut with energies that you feel. You always know what's good and what is not. So yeah, after that, they never came back. I have many other stories, not just in this house, so I'll keep sharing.
I'm going to tell you guys about the most haunted, psychotic experience I ever had with the paranormal while I drink my coffee. When I first got a divorce, I moved into this house with this girl that I grew up going to middle school with. That's a story for another time, horrible roommate experience. However, we moved into this little yellow old house. It was cute though. Hold on, I'm actually going to try to find a picture of the house real quick and then I'll show it to you. So I said it was cute, it's not that cute. But it felt so freeing because it was the first time that I was living on my own ever in my entire life with a roommate, but you know, after divorce. So I have 2 kids. Eventually these people moved out and it was just myself and my 2 daughters living in this house. I started to notice that my youngest, she was like 3 at the time, that she was wanting to spend a lot of time by herself alone in her bedroom, which is not like her at all in general. She's a very Velcro child, always has been, but she wanted to spend alone time in her room. I would kind of like let her be in there, and I started to notice that she was shutting the door. Once I started to notice that she was doing that, I started to go over and listen through the door, and I noticed that she was talking to herself. And I was like, okay, I mean, normal. She's 3. She's talking to herself. But then she started talking what it seemed like to another person. And I thought, okay, well, also quite normal. She's 3. She probably has some sort of like imagination play going on. So I didn't think too much of it. But I did start opening the door and saying, hey, maybe like we got to keep the door open. And she would get upset. She'd get pretty angry and annoyed. And she wanted to keep the door shut. And she started to say that her friend didn't want to have the door open, that her friend wanted to have the door shut while they played. So I said, okay, I understand, baby, but where you have to keep the door open for safety purposes. I started to just be a little bit curious about this friend that she had and this imagination that she was experiencing. When she went to sleep, I guess like at some point around that time, I started to ask her, so like, what kind of games do you and this friend play? Like, what's this friend's name? She told me this friend's name is Penelope. And in the room, they had these sliding closet doors. And she goes, yeah, her name's Penelope. She lives in the closet. I said, okay. She said, she's a little girl like me, mommy, and she doesn't like you very much. I was interested about that. It's like, why does my daughter have a imaginary friend who doesn't like me? Like, what could this mean psychologically, right? So I was like, okay, well, why doesn't she like me? She goes, well, she says that you're not a good mommy, that you're a mean mommy. And I said, okay. She said, well, her mommy died. She's 3. We didn't have any death in the family. We don't have conversations about death. Like, nothing. Like, we don't have death at that point. She was like, yeah, well, her mommy died and they lived here. At that point, I was like, that's a little bit weird. But I still was thinking, this is probably an imaginary friend situation. I probably need to just try to figure out why she's created this storyline. I don't know how she could have possibly created this storyline. I noticed that this pattern of her wanting to spend time in her room and be alone, like that kind of just got stronger and stronger. She always wanted to play with Penelope. She started to kind of be really insistent that she got to shut the door while she was in the bedroom. Her defiance toward me got very extreme during this time. So I was just kind of curious about it. Well, one night they were gone. They were at their dad's house. And at this time in their life, I used to sleep in their room when they were gone. I know that's kind of weird. This is getting too long. I'll tell you the rest of the story in part 2. Okay, this is the second part of the story of the most psychotic paranormal experience I've ever had in my life. I was saying that when my daughters would go to their dad's house, the first few years, probably 2 to 3 years of the divorce, I would sleep in their bedroom because I just couldn't stand being apart from them. One night I'm laying in their bed and I'm on the phone with a friend. And all of a sudden I feel this very strong, dark presence, and I could feel it, like physically on my body. It felt like my body was being pushed against the bed. And I got so quiet, because I couldn't even talk. I was on the phone, and on the other side of the phone, the friend that I'm speaking to, I have not said anything to them yet. Okay, on my life, I have not said anything to them about what is happening. I just am experiencing this in my bed. And they go, Mackenzie, you need to get out of the room that you're in right now. And I was like, I can't move. And they said, put me on speaker. And I was like, I can't move. I was just laying there saying, I can't move. And they were like, you need to stand up and tell it to get out of your house. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling like I could move. Like I had the strength to do it. And I stood up and I said, in the name of Jesus, get out of my house and never return. I am protected. My children are protected. Leave. And I felt this off my body and out of the room. Kid you not, my daughter never spoke a word about this little girl, Penelope, ever again after that moment. This was an everyday occurrence. My daughter would want to play with her, want to talk about her, would tell me all of the time that she didn't like me, and all of a sudden, not after this moment, not one word ever again. This is not the only paranormal experience I had in this house. I had so many more experiences, but not with that entity and not in that way. My daughter has never spoken about it ever again.